Hi everyone, welcome to the 21st Century Human podcast, where we discuss the tools and techniques that make you thrive and survive in the 21st century. I'm Lewis Richards, and I'm joined by my colleague Bob Barker, and very lucky today. We're in the Sussex Police headquarters and joined by three special guests. So guys, if you want to introduce yourselves.
Giles York, I'm the Chief Constable for Sussex Police.
Giles.
Christy, I'm a Police Constable for Sussex Police.
I'm Christine Jeffrey, I'm the Project Manager for the Mobile Policing Project in Sussex and Surrey.
Cool, excellent. So, we always start the podcast and kick off with kind of like a bit of a news update, right? And the whole point of the podcast is about sort of assessing kind of our view of the digital world that surrounds us as well. So, any interesting stories from your particular context that you found interesting this week or in the last month or so that really piqued your interest? Anything particularly technology-wise that's kind of phased you?
I wouldn't say any technology's phased me. I've been using the new phone that we've been given at work, which is...
You've been testing new devices. Okay.
So is that relatively new, that device then?
So for me,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, it's actually quite good actually, because the first bit we do generally is talk about tech on the table, basically.
Oh, okay.
So what tech do you have when you carry around with you as well? So, Chris, you as a frontline man, you're kind of like you're encased in technology. It seems at the moment.
A response officer.
I am a response officer.
Yes.
So I have my usual personal radio, which is the police radio.
Yeah.
I've got my work phone, which is a Samsung Galaxy Note 8. I have a taser on me as well, which is digital.
that's the first time we've interviewed people with a taser.
Well, especially
You can do a demonstration
digital
if you like.
taser as well. Yeah,
You can volunteer.
Not volunteering. I've seen a few YouTube videos of people being tased. I think we'll leave that one. Yeah.
As well as obviously my personal tech, which is Apple Watch, Apple iPhone.
So you're pretty surrounded by digital technology as you move around these days.
Yes.
What about you guys as well? Then do you use smartphones as well, or?
I have smartphones. I carry a Samsung S8 as my work phone, and I've got a Samsung S7 as my personal phone.
Okay.
Yeah, I should carry one phone, but at the moment I've still got two.
Okay.
Can't quite get away.
What about Christine? From work, are you laptop based as well, or
Yes,
tablets?
got a laptop, so I use laptop and a tablet at home.
Tablet and tablets at home.
But no watches.
No watches are smart right now. What about you, Giles? You a smart device?
I've tried to cut back on the amount of tech I carry around the place.
Yeah.
And so I'm really pleased because I also have a Note 8, which is a relatively new arrival for us within Sussex. But I used to carry around about 7 different black bricks of my own iPad, my own iPhone, a work phone, a BlackBerry, a laptop, whatever else, a Wi-Fi signal maker, everything else like that. And certainly for me with the Note 8, I think it's a bit of a game changer. It's a much faster bit of kit. So talking to the officers like Chris, who are well aboard, well up with this stuff, they say it transforms the way they're able to do business. And my aspiration now is to try and wean myself off a laptop and just go to meetings with my phone. I think the only challenging thing is my eyesight that will go with that. But the way that it's able to operate, I think, is a game changer again. I think the only other thing that kind of reflects on the eyesight bit is the next big shift I'd like to see is folding glass. So I can turn up with an iPhone or a phone-sized thing, turn it into a tablet, turn it into a presentation screen, fold it back down again.
Well, we might see something going at Mobile World Congress because I know Samsung are working on foldable OLED screens. That could be the next thing potentially. We might actually see some innovation in the actual form factor for a change. Might be nice.
So just talk about what was game changing in that, because you're able to combine both the policing and the personal into one application and talk a bit about those 3 infrastructure things.
Well, as Chris says, he's got an iPhone and he's got his work phone. So he's still got a home phone and a work phone and carrying 2 bricks around with you, effectively, wherever you go, certainly wherever you go on duty. One of the innovations that we've been able to bring in on the latest iteration of our mobile device is a work folder. It's actually on the screen behind you there. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but over here is a work folder where you've got all of the apps in a workspace. So my work calendar is in there, my work email is in there, also access to things like the policing computers, the policing databases or everything else like that. But because we're such a forward and advanced thinking organisation, what we've also given is people free rein to download their personal things on there. And it's absolutely secure because you're able to have both sides of the phone. Yeah. So now you can give a phone to an individual and say, use it as your own phone, or it's also a work phone for you as well.
Yeah, and we see this on the camera as well, but the phone's actually docked into a DeX docking station as well. So it's actually effectively with a Bluetooth keyboard you guys. So that's effectively now your your PC in terms of work. Office politics.
And Dex is something that's quite new to us. I think we've bought nearly 2,000
yeah.
for Sussex Police, so we'll be rolling them out. And it's all very well, I think, sometimes described to people, well, put it in the cloud and you can find it again, and what I put on my phone I can then find on my desktop, whatever. But sometimes you can't. And so I think the game changer for this is if an officer or member of staff is out taking a statement or doing something on their phone, if they come back and come onto a desktop, they're then trying to find where did they put it in the cloud, has it moved across, have they got a signal or not. Whereas with these things, you plug it in and you're exactly where you left off. It's the same device, same place. Cloud's brilliant, but sometimes just having it on the device is better. That's why I think this is a phenomenal system.
Yeah, it's an interesting use case that you're using it for, I think. Okay, so the main bulk of the interview is we've got our 21st Century Human Framework, which has got 7 sections, and we just go around and kind of pick your brains a little bit about some of these topics and kind of the main areas. So the first one is, we class it as sensing and context, and this is basically how do you personally keep up with news and the outside world as well. And what we're looking for is kind of, do you have any kind of personal workflows, or do you use any apps to actually keep track of news you train yourselves, or do you just go to individual websites, or do work kind of bring things together and feed them to you, things to be aware of as well, that kind of stuff. So just a feel for, how do you stay on top of the deluge of stuff that's out there on a daily basis?
I think from a work perspective, given the area that I work in, a lot of it comes from kind of forums and gatherings and meetings and networking with colleagues. From a personal perspective, Facebook I rely on quite a lot, and BBC News apps. I'm probably on the BBC News app most. Yeah. But mainly Facebook and things that people have linked about latest innovations and things.
That's quite interesting actually, because most people still aren't that brilliant at using Facebook as a kind of like a research tool, or use it for groups. Groups are actually really powerful, I think, in terms of if you're in the right communities and you police it correctly yourself, so you can triage what you're looking at. Facebook's really powerful for that kind of stuff as well. Okay, cool. Any other tips and tricks or things you use or look at particularly? Or
generally, it's the news apps and things of that nature. With regards to the work phone, we get generic messages that come out saying systems will be updated on this date.
Right.
And then there's actually a specific app that we use that has information that generally is necessary, so passwords and things of that nature, and up and coming things that we need to be aware of, and also a forum to allow people to say what they want to say. So.
Okay.
And Giles, if you use Twitter, you gave us that example of two policemen sitting down having a cup of coffee, but in fact they were on their mobile phones doing useful work.
Well, I think one of the interesting things about this is probably the place I found most new is by talking to people. A friend who has worked for Bryan & Hove, the chief exec there, John Barradell, once gave me a lovely phrase of we play one-upmanship. And we kind of done it here when you've arrived here. Have a look at this on my phone. You have a look at this on my phone. Hang on, what's that one? Yeah. What does yours do that mine doesn't do? And I think what's quite interesting is how people will say, well, I like Apple because everything's integrated. Yeah, but you can integrate everything platform independent through Google. So that's just a ruse that says, well, everything's integrated through Apple. You can integrate across your devices by any mechanism that you want. It's just how you choose to use that. And so I think the other thing is interesting is you can log on to all the forums or anything else or whatever it is, but actually often the best way is word of mouth. Yeah. If somebody's saying, well, I've got one of these or I've got one of those, or if you think you're looking for something specific, and I think this is where we're quite interesting in a pick up and throw away almost. So I'm so old, when I was growing up, you used to buy software on a couple of discs and it could cost quite a lot of money. And so once you bought it, you made sure you bought the right thing. Whereas now, if you're looking for an app that'll tell you where parking spaces are, you might download it for the day when you're going to wherever it is you want to park and delete it the next day. I'm looking for an app that'll, tell me what the weather is. I download 6 of them, and within a week I've deleted 5 of them. And so there's quite a pick and choose until you find actually what suits you. And I think the other thing is how you bespoke what your device is. And what the chances are of ever picking up 2 different people's devices and saying, oh, look, you've got the same screen as I have. Because I'll bet 2 people don't have the same screen unless they've never changed it.
No, we find a lot of that as well. There's a lot of psychology around actually how you respond to things like notifications and distractions. Actually designing the way your phones are laid out. No 2 people are the same there either. Really.
Yeah, but Robert asked about the photo I saw that one of my officers tweeted to me. And it was somebody had taken a picture of, I think it was 2 Manchester officers having a cup of coffee with a cynical comment of, glad to see the police are working hard today. And the officer sent it to me and tagged me in it to say, do you know what, I think, Giles, you ought to approve of this. We're in a public space, we are visible, we are human, we do need to drink sometimes. But actually, if you zoom in on the photo, what you can see is they're both on mobile devices. And there's something about the public psyche that a police officer working doesn't only count if they're walking along with a high hat on down the high street. It counts if they're looking at their phone. It counts with what's there. The capability that we put into these phones now,
Amazing.
I think is phenomenal. And I can keep people safer. Chris will keep people safer, often by looking at this. I was at a opening of a police hub, bizarrely, over in Selsey, south of Chichester the other day. And some of the local officers had turned up because the local MP was there. We were cutting the ribbon with the Police and Crime Commissioner. But as we were standing there, the officer was looking at his camera all the time. And actually in my speech I referenced, it's really good having him in the hub, but actually what he's doing is he's watching the automatic number plate readers coming out of the local town, waiting for a vehicle to say, if this vehicle comes up, I'm off.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're in the middle of your speech, I'm going to go and find this.
Yeah.
And so with these devices now, the effectiveness of officers, I think, is phenomenal when they know how to use it. So they can park half a mile down from a static camera reading number plates, and rather than just trying to look and say, I think that car looks interesting, which could bring out discrimination, prejudice, bias, or anything else like that, they're looking at the screen going, there's one with no insurance, there's one with no MOT, there's one where we've got somebody wanted for a burglary who's been driving it before. And so the effectiveness now that I can get from officers by sitting looking at a screen, even when they're out and about, is phenomenal.
That's quite good, actually, because that leads
Is that right, Chris?
That's correct, yeah, completely correct. It allows us to be able to deal with incidents quickly in the respect that if something, let's say Joe Bloggs has just committed a burglary, instead of relying on the information that's coming through that can be quite clunky, it allows us to rely on actual images. So if Joe Bloggs is described as a white male or a black male, 5'5", and so on, we're able not just to rely on that and think, well, does that person match? Does that person? We can actually see a photo instantly on our phone and say, there he is. Right, let's go. Which then we can safeguard other people.
Can I give one more example?
Yeah,
as well,
sure.
Yeah.
which I think is quite exciting. I'm not sure whether we're doing it yet. Technically we can. I'm not sure whether we built it in as a routine business process yet. But of course, what will happen is somebody will phone us. Sometimes by the time we get there, everything's changed. Domestic abuse is possibly one of those examples. Is first somebody will phone us terrified. By the time we get there, they're kind of, no, we're fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry, everything's sorted here. What we can now do is send the original phone call to the officer attending. So when the officer turns up, they're told, no, everything's fine, don't know what you're talking about. They can then say,
Play the audio
well,
back.
actually,
Yeah.
this is you on the phone 10 minutes ago. Please could you tell me what was happening then? So we're recording all the phone calls that come in. And exactly as Chris says is, if you're relying on an intermediary to pass on a message that says, look, the woman was distressed or whatever, this, and this, actually you're putting it there. With the body-worn video, which is a bit of kit that Chris hadn't mentioned when he arrived with, is if we can get this into the courtroom, people will plead guilty earlier.
Yes.
And so the way that we're using this now, not just at the point of capture, but right the way through the system, because a lot of our suspects, offenders, by the time they're in the courtroom, don't want anybody else to see what actually happened.
No, sure.
And so the power of this further through the system, I think, is phenomenal.
You're starting to see that as well from consumer devices, aren't you? So I think there's been a couple of cases of like the Amazon's Echo devices recording audio and
Yes.
crime scenes and things like Fitbits with for heart rates and all that kind of stuff and tax and stuff. Yeah, fascinating. That bit, yeah. Go on, Sid, Bob.
Well, that
Personal
personal brand, I mean, this is your public profile as well, so that's a different kettle of fish. But so it's a bit on. It might be worth you. How do you manage that, and do you think about that often, or you plumbed into the PR department anyway? So is it a sort of virtuous circle?
I am plumbed into the PR department and tie through. I'm very progressive about trying to say officers, staff, really welcome for them to have a corporate account.
Right.
But to be human on that account. And but also not to bring us into disrepute.
Yeah.
But there's also kind of channel shift on there. So you might see an awful lot of, I don't know what you'd call them, but the Twitter signature or whatever its profile says, don't report crime on here, dial 101.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't want you to dial 101 if it's not urgent or anything like that. I'd much rather you report online. So what I've tried to do is have all of the Sussex police profiles say, rather than report crime on here, report it, go and with a link to where you can report it online now.
Yeah.
Right.
So there is the brand. The bigger than my brand is the Sussex Police brand. Within that, we need a certain level of corporacy across all of the systems and professionalism as well, which is different to what some people may choose to do in their home life which is different again, but actually make it human and engaging. Because I think what social media is about engagement, not broadcast. And that's where we get the difference from it. So I am really encouraging of officers, staff, to have a personal profile element, but professional within that.
Yeah, you can see that from looking at the Sussex Instagram accounts and Twitter accounts. It's obviously doing a really good job of humanising the brand a bit.
And it suits some people, and it doesn't others. Not everyone wants to be out there.
Do you guys, from a because social and personal and using those social tools, it's not just about how you shop online as well. It's about using those tools in the job as well, kind of stuff as well. So there's a certain element of sort of research as well, I suppose, for areas
There
and
is,
people
through
in
Facebook
and Instagram, things like that as well. Yeah,
It's tricky though.
Yeah, it's difficult to do, I imagine.
Well, we're restricted in how much we're able to intrude into people's lives. So if you want to follow someone secretly without them knowing about it, you need an authority.
Yeah.
So if you want to have a look at somebody's Facebook account without them knowing you've looked at it, then you should have an authority. So there's parallels between the physical world and the digital world.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my authorising officer the other day about this, who was really, really good about it. Because he said, look, if there's a burglary, we're very happy to knock on the doors along the road in our uniform, saying, there's been a burglary over there, did you see anything? So in the same way, we should be very happy to use a police Facebook account to say, look, one of your friends has been hurt, we're now Facebooking you, because you're shown as their friends, do you know anything about what's going on? And do it really overtly as the police in exactly the same way as we would do house to house around a burglary. If we think the person living next to you has done the burglary, we want to hide in the bushes without them knowing that we're looking, that is not how we should be using Facebook or the digital world either.
Yeah.
If we want to do that in the digital world, we need to sign authorities.
Sure.
So I've signed up authorities before now to look into people's Twitter accounts, to look into people's virtual storage around suspected paedophiles and things like that. But I'll sign an authority so that we can do it properly without them knowing about it.
Sure. Okay.
Right.
So the next two sections we look at are what we class as tools and abilities, kind of like your digital fabric. So we're asking a bit of a question about kind of what's the main ecosystem you use, what's the main devices you use, right? We touched a little bit on that as well. And then how that then goes into, how do you feel personally about being the competence and confidence of the digital skills you've got in that? And how does that then amplify your productivity and stuff like that? And we're interested from a personal point of view in terms of things that you feel are better now or worse now, and what bearing in mind you sat in the middle of you, I suppose, what could be done better and what could be done, what doesn't quite work in that way as well. So, I mean, do you want, Christine, how do you feel? Do you feel confident and competent with the technology that you have?
Yes. I think working in the mobile policing world and working with mobile phones for the last 5-6 years that I have had to become able to use it, but I've been able to teach myself a lot to be able to teach others on how to do things as well. I use Android ecosystem for my home and work phone, which helps, I think. I was Apple, but I was converted when I moved to Android. So I think there's a lot of self-learning that we have to do to get on board.
And they are different beasts as well. I mean, they are very different. I mean, they fundamentally look the same, but there are different skill sets to be proficient at using an Android device versus being proficient at an iOS device. I mean, they're not. They might look the same, but they're not quite the same in terms of how fast you are using.
You guys are talking about you've got lots of 2-minute training videos.
That's right. Yeah. So within our intranet site, officers can access, or users of our MGTs can access help guides, 2-minute bite-sized videos. So if they need to understand how to do some functionality, they can just do 2-minute video, so you're not taking up too much of their time.
Those 2-minute videos, they're produced in-house by you guys. Do you actually also let the users create 2-minute videos to get vetted, or are they kind of...
We haven't, but we are looking to do that.
Yeah.
So we're looking at kind of doing a bit of a forum with users and actually getting them to do the videos themselves.
Yeah,
so it's something we're actually doing at the moment.
If you find something that's useful that you've done, it may be good to capture that and feed that in.
Yeah. One of the things we have developed, talk about notifications earlier, as you know, there is a psychology around what people do with them when they see them. Do they really take the information in? A member of our team has actually developed an app for our phones that actually is called Quick Links, which actually brings down a notification message, but we can define what they say. So like Facebook notifications or BBC notifications, we were using text messages before, but we can never guarantee who's read them. We can't tell who's even opened them. But with the Quick Links app, it's a much better way to actually get information.
You get some metadata around the thing, but when it's opened and looked at.
Yeah. That's so that's definitely, I think, been a useful thing.
Where are you, Christoph? So you obviously with work, you've got lots of tech and stuff as well.
To be honest, my household is both.
You're both, yeah?
Both. I'm very Apple orientated, whereas my wife is not. She's very Android orientated. So we actually have the technology for both in our house. With work, I definitely think that the Android works better than the iOS. I think there's more functionality within the Android side of things, which allows us as a organisation to be able to maximise the benefit that we get from it. We have super users, which I am one of, that are kind of the link between the mobile,
the business team and the front line.
And the front line. And I am often approached by other officers of many different ranks, not just police constables, that ask for
how do I do this?
Guidance on things. And it's nice to be able to be put in a position where I can actually do that and not feel that just because I have this knowledge that I can't actually impart it onto someone else. And it's nice on that front.
I think that's good to see that happening as well.
And I think the accessibility of the phone and what the functionality of it is second to none at the moment with what we have. So.
And from a mainstream policing point of view, then, Giles, in terms of that, you've seen great strides in the tooling and the productivity, the effectiveness, this kind of stuff over the years. I mean, this is kind of obviously a strategy looking forward to. I know you've got plans for like 2020, 2025, those kind of things. What digital policing looks like, I suppose, as you move into the future.
I think it is, and I don't know what the right terminology is for it, Liz, but you might call it the workflow piece. So it's how do you capture it at the beginning? Once you've got it, what do you do with it? And then once you need to do something with it, how do you move it on to the next person? What are the standards? How does you get an Android device to work with a Windows desktop, to work with a bespoke bit of kit that then wants to move across to the Crown Prosecution Service? And if you like, we'll go and visit the contact centre later, and you'll see 100 people in there potentially with 4 or 5 big screens in front of them.
Sure.
And you probably recognise 2 of the bits of software that they're using and nothing else. And it's how we exploit this thing. So what we've tried to do is separate the workforce into kind of 3 layers. One, who's office-based? Who needs a desk, has a desk, they sit at their desk all day. That's the bit of kit that we'll give them. Second one, who's sometimes at their desk, sometimes not. Who needs to be mobile, and they could actually run really well off a laptop. And I've got a whole team of people now who will run off a laptop, but will have a soft phone running on it as well.
Sure.
So it doesn't matter where they are, they've always got the same telephone number that you're able to contact them on and use that to be able to contact members of the public. And then, typified by Chris as well, those who are always mobile. And so it's kind of typified is, do you need a desktop, do you need a laptop, or do you need a mobile device?
So you've got kind of
segregate the organisation
3
like
kind
that.
of work styles that kind of combine
3 major work styles. Of course, you'll find the odd variance between the 2,
that kind of thing.
but you'll find that there are those 3 main styles.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so we look at then, we talk a little bit about collaboration really. And when we bring collaboration, we're not particularly interested in using a collaboration software product. We're more interested in like kind of how you feel in your personal lives and in work, that you're able to collaborate and share, the human connection. So like, we have this view of everybody sat there looking at the screens and not talking to each other, that kind of thing. But generally people find patterns of working that sometimes aren't provided by work, but they are effective. So like, work might give you a way of communicating, but then, with your person and your family heavy users of WhatsApp or Messenger and that kind of stuff as well. What's your sense of your real-time comms and your ability to collaborate and share information and find and talk and that kind of stuff? Do you think that's pretty advanced? Do you feel confident in that kind of stuff?
I think it has become more advanced with the phone.
Yeah.
Because where I use the phone predominantly over other people on my team or other people that are within the response field, you'll find that maybe a message is transmitted over the radio and I'm quite quick able to have a look at that, and actually there may be things on here that people aren't aware of, so then you can update the other officers that are going to that scene or prior knowledge of things. I went to that address last week, and actually this is the resistance that I was met with, so you might want to know that because that information isn't held on a database.
Got you.
So it's things of that nature, really.
Yeah, and does that collaboration then? Do you feel like? Do you feel there's good collaboration between those work styles, between the mobile team, the front team, and the talk, and there's lots of interaction?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we've got a team of 4, and we've got a user base of, including Surrey, of 2,500.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
there's a lot of users out there that we need to be able to kind of engage with. So we do that through various means.
Yeah.
The forum is one. What we want to try and do more of is get that two-way communication going digitally somehow. So whether that be via a messaging solution or something similar, I think that would be good to get that kind of instant kind of feedback rather than just relying on talking to people.
And do you have a sort of messaging solution? Do you have a chatter or WhatsApp or official
Not
police
yet,
thing?
but it's on its way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we use Link, but it's not on the mobile platform yet. We use
Yeah.
Yammer, which is a kind of a public sector version of WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever else. They're not as good as the commercial product, but because of the business that we're in, we don't necessarily like things like WhatsApp, where all the information goes to America.
Yeah.
But I really recognise the value of allowing teams to be able to talk to each other with a single conversation. Yeah. And what I sometimes see is officers will come up with their own solution. There's this test of why can't I use tech at work the way I use it at home?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
So if a response section has its own WhatsApp group, I'd much rather be able to give them that formally in work. Mainly because I can see what they're saying, everything's recorded and retains that professional piece to it. Invariably, they are incredibly professional in what they do, but there's something about... so I've got one amongst the chief officers. We've implemented a BBM piece because it's secure.
Yeah.
But the rules on it are be communicative, engage, talk, but if it was printed on the front page of the local newspaper, we wouldn't be embarrassed.
Yeah.
So there's
Self-policing
an awful lot of people come out and say, I think social media is awful. I said, I think social media is brilliant. I think some of the people who use it could be awful in the way that they use it. So there's nothing wrong with social media. There's something really wrong with some of the people in the way that they use it.
Yeah. And with the interestingly, I think you call them Spocks. I think you talk to your people who power use that kind of stuff. Yeah. So from a digital leadership point of view, in terms of how you spread that knowledge, was that a conscious decision to create that kind of community of super users, or is it just something that's formed? Is this bubbled up, or that was a conscious plan?
It was a conscious plan. We learned from a previous project, the implementation of Niche, where they used the Change Network, and it was very successful. So we decided to adopt that model as part of our change piece.
With the Spocks volunteers, or did you kind of how did you eyeball people who are good with tech? So you volunteered then, yeah?
I think because I was actually a Change Network advisor for Niche.
Yeah.
I was approached initially and asked whether I wanted to be part of it. I said, well, anything that kind of allows us to have the knowledge that we need to have and the capability to be able to do our job properly, then yeah, by all means. And actually it's worked out in my favour because it means that I'm actually able to trial a lot of the product before that.
Yeah, I got you.
So
I think part of the challenge isn't with the super users, it's what's the opposite of a super user, Chris? It's the people who are slow to tech,
technophobes,
who don't know the tech, and the technophobes or anything else like that.
Yeah.
So I've described how effective I think you can be if you use the tech and push the boundaries on it. And so again, I'll drop into Christine's office and see Shane and Mark, who she works with in there, and say, how many people are bothering you saying, this is what I want on the device next? Yeah, the device is great, it's doing this. This is what I want next. This is the next boundary I want. This is the next bit I want in this. So the two bits to it, I think, are who's keeping us with the best device in the country? Who are the people who want to push and say, I want this to be better than it already is? And actually, what are we doing about? And a line I used recently is, I wonder if when we first brought in cars, there were some officers who said, it's not for me, I think I'll still walk, thanks.
Yeah, stick with the horse.
And whether this is the kind of the parallel of the effectiveness that we've got, is an officer who chooses not to use this, how more or less effective, and eventually how more or less safe are they, or safe are the public, because of the choices that they're making.
Yeah.
Then I found that the people that you would expect to want to use it and the people that you would expect not to want to use it aren't actually what reality is. Because there are a lot of officers and sergeants, predominantly for me, that are so keen to use it, even if they haven't got that knowledge. I have a sergeant who I helped her set her phone up, and then she kept coming up to me and going, are you sure you put my password in right? Because it's not working. Yes, Sergeant, 100% I've put your password in right. I would put it in, it would work. And I said, actually, before we carry on, show me what you're doing. Show me where you are going wrong. And it was something as simple as, instead of going tick, 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 tick to put the password in, it was very much clunky. So 1, 2. I said, yeah, so what you're doing is, because you're pressing and holding the button too long, it's then going over to the umlaut and so on.
Yeah.
And as a result, your password isn't working. So just try and be a little bit faster. And as soon as that happened...
But it's that show me bit that some
Yeah.
people are in the category of needing a bit, and that's what we see is
Very good example.
they do need a bit of show me, and they do need a bit of coaching just to get them psychologically across the gap. And you know,
it sounds like you kind of cracked that nut a little bit though as well, because I think sometimes there's a lot of assumption is that people just know how to use that, and you can just ladle in new stuff, and you know, it'll just magically, you know, go be more innovative. You know, because you've got the stuff. You know,
It'd be like me passing a smartphone to my parents, going, "Go on with it."
Yeah,
and they wouldn't know because they're not of that generation. But there's that belief that everyone must be of that generation, and I think what Sussex Police have done as a whole is say, do you know what? We know that isn't the case, and it is going to need to be a little bit more personable.
Yeah.
And it's then allowed the super users to kind of slot into that role to be that mediatory kind of part in between.
Yeah.
it makes it augmenting the people really. Isn't it, I suppose.
On the leadership thing, I mean, clearly, Giles, you're kind of leading. You make a conscious decision to, you know, be out there leading with the technology, using it yourself, being on social media. Is that's very conscious, isn't it, in terms of and from a national perspective as well? Do you want to talk about the leading by example?
I think the leading by example bit doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go out now and park by an ANPR camera and try and pull people over, because Chris does his job an awful lot better than I can do it. Neither is it me about kind of trying to run the mobile project and saying, because there's any number of things you could do next, and it's how do you choose what they are. And just because I've walked in with a wacky idea after having dinner with you at the weekend or something, of saying this is what I want on there next, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the best thing for it. But I think the leading by example bit for me, time and again, is you give permission for everybody else to do it. So when I get something wrong on Twitter, very publicly, it gives an excuse for everybody else to get something wrong on Twitter. If you engage with people, challenge people, if I'm seen to use this, and if you came along to one of my board meetings where there's, I don't know, a dozen to 20 people in the room, I hope what you would see is 15 to 18 laptops in there. You won't see people with A4 lever arch files or printed off papers nearly as much as you might have done before. And actually you'll see people with just the mobile devices in meetings now, because they can access all the papers in one place, the same set of papers and everything that's there. So there's something about how do you make it the whole business? It's not, so if I'm going to say, actually more effective if you're using these than you're not, but actually could you go and print my papers for me? It's not really a very good advert around it. But something about running something the scale of Sussex Police, which is about 5,000, 6,000 people all told, I've kind of got to be as excited about how you apply this in Christos's space as to how I've got a machine that folds the letters that gives out parking fines, or speeding fines, we don't do parking, speeding fines, because it needs to fold 500 letters a day, or whatever it is that we sell. So it's every aspect of the business is how do we start tying this together.
That's fine.
Good. Finally, on lifestyle, I mean, so you still have that blip test that you
did it last week. I did it Thursday morning.
But do you
Did
don't
I pass?
wear
Yes, I did pass.
Yeah,
that's what that look was, wasn't it? I wish people wouldn't look at me sideways and say, "Did you pass?"
But are you recording? What do you do about recording your steps and your health and all the rest of it?
Do you do anything?
I've got the Samsung, I can't remember what it's called, the health app on the
Health, I think
native
it's
one,
called,
yes.
yeah,
I
that
do
stuff,
have that. I can't say I religiously look at it, but I do have it.
Yeah. We're interested in this kind of lifestyle bit as well, because we see this kind of quantification and this kind of Internet of Things thing bleeding into people's lifestyles at home as well. So this kind of, and it's more for a conception of like, if you wear a smart device like that, you're kind of getting the digital skills around the idea of sensor data being associated with you. So we're trying to tweak out for saying like, if you count steps and stuff, it means you're starting to be aware of those kind of things.
That I'm starkly aware of is I asked Christos to do some really dangerous, difficult stuff. Whether physically, whether mentally, or anything else like that. One of the significant changes we've seen in policing over the last 5 years or so is a real increase in reporting of serious sexual assaults and rapes. Officers dealing with that day in, day out, and certainly in Brighton a couple of years ago, they were really under pressure. They were really creaking and beginning to hurt a bit. And so we came in and gave them wellbeing training. And said, actually, this is how you can think differently, this is what you can do differently. And again, it's the permission bit to say, it's all right to go for a walk along the seafront at lunchtime. I think this is where it's come from, but what they've spun off from that is a whole challenge on using Runkeeper. So I'm halfway through now. It's as simple as 7 miles a week is what you record, but there's a team of 24 of us in our team, and there's another 5 or 6 teams running. So now, because of that's something that we put in there, using Runkeeper that's available on all of the devices, I've now got nearly 200 of my staff doing 7 miles a week, encouraging each other, prompting each other, and one chap just messaged me this morning saying, "You did your 7 miles a week before I did this week. You finished them." And I've replied to him. I said, "It's not a competition, but I am winning."
Yeah, it's a funny one, only just from whether this is correct or not in terms of that, from like a PCSO potentially might be out there walking the streets all day, doing 10 miles a day, walking the beat, whereas response generally is car based as well. My experience of it has been that it's eating healthily on a normal shift is not having time to eat is hard enough as well. So then wolfing down Mars bars and crisps, because it's the only thing you can get in your body. So that kind of wellness being, it's a very difficult thing to be aware of wellness when you're on that kind of stuff, because you're going from, you're constantly moving, and those kind of things as well. So that's interesting that you talk about well-being as opposed to, that whole...
Well, the training that I did last week, having done the fitness tests,
yeah.
they teach you the kind of hand-to-hand body combat, whatever it is, stuff that we do. They also teach you first aid at the same time, and they integrate it really well. And so in part of my conversation with the trainers on the back of it, because it's 2 days solid that officers will go through, and staff do a day as well, is actually, do you know what, I'd like a wellbeing bit inserted in here. Saying, all right, what's a healthy diet? How do you keep well? What's the mental health? Because we have over 200, we call them mental health advocates, within the organisation. So if you are going through a difficult time, there's people that you can go and talk to.
Yeah.
We've actually created our own Sussex Police app called the Backup Buddy, which has got, you click on it and it's got all the contacts for where you can go if you're not feeling right, kind of well in the head, you're suffering, going through a challenging mental health time, and it's got short videos on there of my officers and staff who've experienced mental health challenges and said, this is what this is for me.
Right.
So there's a whole forum in place that's
and again,
put on all the mobile
devices and stuff.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Quick fire round.
Quick fire round. Okay, so a bit of fun this one.
Take it in, just
so you
far away.
You can shout it as you go through. So basically, this is your instant response. You can pick one or other, or you can see both will give us another option. Right. So the first one is Apple or Android.
Android.
Apple.
Oh, he's got Apple. And
I just don't give a stuff.
you don't care. So you're agnostic. Okay. This is the real geeky one. So Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Giles?
No, I wouldn't do either of those.
Okay, fine. Yeah,
I'd go
okay.
Princess Bride, I think.
Oh, yeah. See, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I like that. Excellent. Okay. LinkedIn or Twitter?
Neither.
Neither.
No.
Okay. Twitter?
LinkedIn, because I don't have Twitter.
You don't have Twitter. Okay.
You don't need a job there. Why are you on LinkedIn?
You're not. Shut up, mate. Okay.
It's his personal project.
So, Microsoft Office 365 or Google Apps?
Google Apps.
Google Apps. Yeah. Okay. So again, personally, so WhatsApp or Slack? You might not use Slack or WhatsApp or any other messaging
Collaboration tool.
WhatsApp. Yeah. So you heavy WhatsApp users. Okay. Dropbox or SharePoint as a tool set?
Google Drive.
Google Drive.
And also Google Keep was one
Google
I found
Keep.
the other day.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you
Okay.
see Google Keep?
Yeah. The amount of products in Google's ecosystem is
amazing.
vast that people don't.
Well, my
know.
wife likes Keep because what she's found is that if she puts a to-do list on there, it comes up on both of our devices.
Yeah. So
Usually it's my to-do list.
things to do. Yeah. So these are ones you might not have experienced or you might do as well. So virtual reality or augmented reality. Have you tried either, or do you?
VR.
You've tried a bit of VR.
virtual
Are you doing anything with VR? I said you might do a bit of. You said you're doing some VR training, I think, or experiment some little bits and pieces with it.
Yeah, we've had a few VR
Things.
scenarios as such
Yeah.
to look into, which is quite good.
Okay. Fitbits or Apple Watches, or any another, any kind of personal
Fitbit if I had one.
Fitbit if you had one, yeah.
I have an Apple Watch. So
You've
I'll
got
say
Apple
Apple
Watch.
You've
Yeah.
got robustness round you.
I have, and I actually had a cover that went on top of that as well. However, during an incident, it got lost.
Yeah.
But
Is that a police robustness or is it a...
No, I bought that.
Yeah.
before.
It's like everything's coming in like an otter boxes,
Yeah.
throwing everything.
Yeah, it's not my mistake.
It's just a weapon at the same time.
My
So,
daughters refuse to have it.
yeah.
on her. So it's like that.
Podcast or YouTube?
Or YouTube.
YouTube. That's an interesting one actually. So it comes down to that kind of like how do you like to learn stuff, I suppose. So like visual learning or audio.
I do Amazon Audible.
Okay, audiobooks, right? Yeah.
I
Okay.
suppose we use YouTube more, don't we? Because
Yeah.
a lot of our things are YouTube
Based.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of video.
Channels,
Yeah, a lot of our.
Is this on YouTube?
It will be on YouTube, yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah,
So you can
yeah.
share it on there if you use YouTube as well. So
Good answer.
again, so music-wise, iTunes or Spotify?
iTunes.
iTunes.
So I've got Spotify.
Spotify.
Yeah.
Yeah, this goes back to that whole ecosystem thing about Apple again. Like, do you buy albums, or do you just pay $9.99 a month to just listen to?
Well, I pay, and my whole family uses it.
So you got a family, got a family
and my
member.
sister as well, who are not.
Is that within the license conditions?
Yeah.
Yeah, Netflix is one.
He was
Black Cabs.
Is the lead from that?
Yeah, I'm not sure you got
intellectual property.
I'm not sure you haven't done any of that. So Black Cabs or Uber? Have you tried
I
Ubers?
haven't used either actually.
You haven't used either?
With the police, we use public transport.
Yeah.
Okay, of course. Okay, fine thing. And then Amazon or eBay?
Amazon.
Oh, both.
Both.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Well, choose when you can have both.
Variety,
Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, desert island apps then.
Yeah.
So just quickly, top 3 apps you can do without, and we give you, of course, phone functionality, email, and
Maps.
maps as
Is there a
standard.
network on this island?
Yeah, it is. You get the phone in the network as well. Yeah.
The
So
10
3 apps. You don't have to have 3 apps. You can just, any ones you like, basically. But we're trying to hear what can you live without on your.
If I went for it, I'd say one is what I found recently called Life 360, which is like Find My Friends, but it works cross-platform. So I could see where my family are, even if they can't see where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is the Hive heating system to make sure they haven't turned it up too high if I'm not
Bit
there.
of IoT in the house.
And then there's probably going to be something like Uncrate, if you know that, which just has a whole load of new products coming on it that nobody can really afford, but just kind of stretches the imagination a bit.
Very good.
Good ones.
Anything else, Christine? Anything? What can you live without? Any particular apps you like?
Probably Facebook, because I keep in contact with friends and family a lot through Facebook.
Yeah.
Radio.
Okay.
And probably WhatsApp.
And WhatsApp. Yeah.
Yeah, WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. Yeah.
Well, I presume if we have Wi-Fi, we can order things, so probably some eBay or whatever.
Good answer.
Okay. Cool.
Finally, we normally talk about is there anything particularly think that drives you to be interested in this subject? Is it something you always had, or why do you pursue these topics? Is there a thing that you've got a natural, you've always been naturally interested in technology? Where's that come from? What's driving you versus the people that aren't really driven by it? What do you think? Is there anything in particular?
Seeing the potential of what it can do. I think there's always something else. So yes, we've deployed phones to officers with certain applications, but there is so much more we could do, and it's looking at what the possibilities are that excites me and why I'm interested in it.
I think it's the innovation as well. I mean, I'm so old, I had an Apple Newton.
Yeah,
which might mean something to some people. I had the first Palm Pilots, the whole generation of Palm Pilots, iPacs. So people sometimes say, blimey, how did you learn to use it like that? It's the same as driving. I've been doing it for 25 years or more. So, but it's just seeing how each bit, you were showing us earlier, the augmented reality and how you can use that. Yep. And then for me, the exciting thing is seeing something like that and then saying, all right, how do you apply that?
Yeah, that's that
application of what does this mean in reality, I find really quite exciting.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing you do find with people who can make that connection straight away from seeing something and then applying it to the context, to the workplace and the job.
How could that work for me?
Yeah, you probably see quite a lot of that, I imagine, from the front-end user.
Personally, I like to have the knowledge of the phones, and maybe part of it, or technology as a whole, maybe part of it is fear that if I don't keep up with it, I might lose touch, and then I might not be able to do my job properly, or I might not have everything that I need at my disposal. So it's nice to kind of have that drive to try and be as technologically aware as possible, and try to use it as best as possible, because I think this is the way we're going. Digital is the new age. No longer is it writing in a book or looking at a newspaper. It's everything is accessible. Like your filter to life is everywhere now, not just in front of you in this page or in this room. It's you have access to the whole world. I have family in Cyprus I can talk to instantly, rather than thinking, I'll wait till I get home and I'll phone them for the weekly chat.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's fab.
Okay.
Yeah, so
thank you very much.
Thanks so much. That wraps up this edition of 21st Century Human podcast, and we look forward to seeing you on the next edition. Thanks so much, guys. For your
Pleasure.
fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye. Bye.